So it's Inktober. There's a few things. Just did this piece right here. I'm going to start posting more on my blog, and I just used this image to kind of move things around and change it. It's a blog about a Jewish cult, potential Jewish cult called Bnew Brak, from the channel of Genetically Modified Skeptic, who's this guy right here. That's the tour. They go to this place in Israel, and they try to use a bite model to test and see if it's a cult. But I think there's a lot of similarities between art and religion. In general, a lot of people who are very religious aren't really that religious, or they say they're religious, but doesn't mean they pray every day or it's a big part of their life. Just like I can be an artist, doesn't mean I've been drawing every day, although I'm going to start doing it a lot more. And I also think it's just people seeing the world out there and trying to understand it and depict it in a certain way, teach other people or exploit it to some other people, recycling these pages from when I was teaching. And when I was trying to teach art, it was entirely different than actually just being an artist and actually just practicing it versus understanding it. So I've been going back and getting more of these videos, trying to rethink the way I approach the world, because there's a lot of things that are changing right now. I've been waiting for some time, been thinking about some things for a long time. I've been drawing since I was a kid, but for a long time, I've been wondering, what's the purpose? Yeah, I can do this, but what's the end goal of this? Yet with something with religion, they have an end goal. And with, with religion as well, I was raised Christian, but I went away from it. I was atheist, and then I was anti-theist, and then I was a-religious. I think I'm more a-religious right now, but I'm approaching it in a different way and trying to understand why people see things in a certain way. I mean, there is definitely an appeal out there to them. And understanding something is different. And I was also kind of thinking, like, being an atheist is not necessarily being a skeptic, because by default you're an atheist and you were indoctrinated or taught to believe a certain thing. Just how, I mean, the atheist, artist, it's not the same. Art is an actual word, but that A just means lack thereof that thing. It's not artist, lack thereof artist. But no, so it's a learned process. Understanding the material is different than believing it, than being able to teach it or communicate it well. That's a whole different thing. I was talking to one of my friends who does these amazing moody pieces. His ability to convey mood is amazing, and he's much younger than me. I think I might have been drawing or doing art longer than he's been alive, but he has this ability to see, and this is one thing I was telling him. I told him he had that amazing ability to do that, and he said, oh yeah, it's this light, it's the shadows. He's like, no, it's not just light. With light, it's something that we all kind of see, but we don't. Being able to depict light is a different thing. Even understanding what light is. I was reading this book in quantum physics, talking about how light comes itself in these little quantum packets and things like this. And then in this atheist group that I was in, somebody was talking about how, oh, if the sun really is where light comes from, then how come there's no light in space? And you might laugh at that question, but why wouldn't somebody ask that question? Why wouldn't somebody not be able to understand what light is? Think about how long people have thought the world is flat, or just other thoughts that we have, or how many things are we just completely unaware of. Even things we experience on a daily basis. You might be able to see due to light, but you understand the process of the light particles coming in and then bouncing off of something and being reflected back to your eyes, and your eyes kind of get them in and they take them in and process them to be that. Then if somebody's blind and they look exactly at that same thing, does that mean that light doesn't exist, or is that light existent because you experience it, just because you can't see it in space? Can you see light if there is nothing for that light to reflect off of? So there's all these things. What is actual darkness? Like, has anyone been, how many people on Earth have been in actual darkness, in those sensory deprivation chambers? So there's all these things. Just being able to experience something does not necessarily mean that thing is understood. And then just understanding something doesn't mean you can depict that thing or communicate that thing. And it's kind of fitting that I'm doing this on these papers. I tried teaching, and I was teaching some art classes at the university for about a year, and it really taught me a lot about myself. In many ways, it's part of why it kind of broke. I was like, okay, now I have to go on this path that I think I'm finally on, about to start some big project that I'll be telling you guys more about very soon. That started, I think, with my initial thinkings of, why is art this? Why I really like doing this, but why do I like doing this? Can I do more of this? But anyway, trying to understand how I could draw a certain way, but teaching somebody why we should draw that certain way, even after having learned to draw in a certain way from somebody else who taught you, was a lot more difficult than I thought, and gave me a better understanding of how to discuss art with people. And I think I'll leave a link also to this blog post. Genetically Modified Skeptic is a really interesting way of discussing atheism. He's one of the more recent guys. I think he's been on for a year on YouTube. And I remember the older guys, the Aaron Ross, the Atheism Experience. There's other atheist channels that kind of helped me. And the guide actually was very pleased to meet him, because they were talking about how she's a fan of his material, and how she said YouTube helped her kind of get away from that. Identifies as a male, but I mean, when you just look at the female, and then there's other things with that. But she, okay, I don't know. Amir, let's just say the name. Amir was going by, was saying that it was easier for Amir to come out to Amir's parents about their gender, about how they identify, than it was to come out as an atheist, due to the way living in this one secluded area is, due to the way the repercussions of doing that would be met, not just to Amir, but to Amir's family and the people Amir still cares about in that environment. So that was just kind of interesting. And I've had a similar experience with that, coming out to people, telling people about my atheism and things like that, living in a community and area and having relatives and people around me who are a lot more religious at different levels. But one thing I've thought of is a different way of communicating, trying to understand where is somebody coming from, why is something important to that person in that way, why are they approaching things in that way. And I think that was a positive thing to see. And that's one thing that I'm going to try to do more, as being somebody who creates art and trying to communicate things. There's certain things I want to communicate that I think I've set up a way where I can communicate them using my art, but also just a simple thing with the religion. When you talk to somebody who is over a different faith, if you talk to an atheist, if you talk to a theist as an atheist, and you're trying to just have a conversation about what they believe, don't just assume what you see is exactly what their actual belief is. Just like if you saw this drawing, somebody might, if I told you, okay, yeah, I drew this from a natural source image, first of all, you won't just assume. You'd look at this and you'd be like, okay, first of all, you understand this is not the exact depiction of the people. You can tell there's some added ability from whatever mental ability, life experience that I have in order to draw this. Then would you further go and say, like, okay, maybe the guy was not there? Would you be able to know that I took that from an image where the guy was actually standing over here, and where this background's not exactly the same? Like right here, I was drawing the lips, and then I kind of messed up a bit and did them too dark. So I was like, okay, instead of doing that, I'm going to add that bike there to kind of look like maybe that's the shadow. Can you understand the parts that I feel I messed up on, or the parts that are more based off of the actual image? And I think that's kind of how it is when you're talking to people about anything, especially when you're talking to people about religion. How much is what they're saying really what they feel in their mind? If you're trying to understand, like, why does this person believe this, or if somebody makes a statement about something, don't just attack the statement and assume that statement itself is completely accurate, or say, oh, this in the Bible is exactly how it has to be believed, whether you are religious or a-religious, whether you're a theist or an atheist. When you get to that point where you assume there's only a one way of looking and understanding certain material without actually establishing whether the person you're discussing to is defining that thing in that way, I think you do yourself a great disservice. Because in that sense, I think theologies are a lot like art, in that it's an expression of something that humans have seen and are trying to communicate to other people. And it includes that aspect of them having some probably personal reasons for why they're communicating it in that way. Personal reasons and also personal limitations, because it gets to a point where, like, okay, I'm putting certain amount of times of hours. If I spent more time in this, if I did more practice runs before the thing, I could have done it better. How much time have I spent doing this? How good am I? So there's all these kind of things that go into it. But yeah, that's just my thoughts. Like, share, and subscribe. Links below are going to be to that blog post. If you guys are wondering why this is here, because old laptop, and then the T came off, And then this is another thing, another talking about limitations on actual conversations. The T came off on the keyboard below here. As you can see, it's rather old. So there was a time when I was typing and I would save the T, both a capital T and a lowercase t, on a separate file. So I would have it saved. So every time I would come around to type a T when I was writing something, I would just do the Control V. Yeah, Control V, Control Paste, which is a shortcut for paste. So I just do the Command paste. This is an Apple. But even, you see, I still call it Control because I learned how to type on a what's it called? On a PC, even though I've been using Mac almost exclusively for, no, not almost exclusively. There's a time when I was using it for a while after school. Okay, once I started using Macs, I've been using Macs for a while. It's the right old Mac. But anyway, so that happened. So I was using Control, Command, V to do it. And at the start, when I started doing it that way, of course, it was making things a lot longer. I still had to go out and get the T, but it was mostly just saved there. But I would just be able to type at a decent speed, decent number of words per minute. And it would just become natural now to just go Control T, Control T, Control T. I mean Control V, Control V, Control V. Whenever I needed a T to come up, and of course when I needed to switch to lowercase or uppercase, it was normally on the lowercase because the lowercase was a lot more common to use. Then when uppercase, I would go back. So that would just be something that I would do. I was kind of used to it. Then with a friend who, same guy who I'm going to work with on this project that I'm going to tell you about later, went to visit them, and they had an extra keyboard, and they gave me the keyboard, and now I've been using it. But anyway, so that's the whole thing with the keyboard. More videos coming soon. Like, share, and subscribe. Links below to the merchandise store. More information on that project coming soon. Excuse the sound quality. I'm going to try to improve that as much as possible in post-production. But that's it for now. Goodbye. Goodbye. I don't know, wave that way, but I'm going to wave at the screen. Goodbye. So the difference with art is most kind of art, nobody says it's real. I don't tell you this is a real image. Sure, it's really physically here on a piece of paper. These are really depictions. I could think about something and imagine it and move it around, and there's really something going on there. But you can appreciate it. You can learn from it, but I don't claim it's real, so I'm not lying to you. But with religion, they do claim it's real, and therein lies the lie. There's a violation of the non-aggression principle. There are things that I don't appreciate about that. And that's it for the video.